what is your advice to some young person out there who wants to start doing stand-up but has no clue?
Well, you know what? It took me a long time to realize this. It's not about the jokes. You know, people labor on the jokes and the material. It's not, you got to have good material, no question about it. But it's more about, it's not what you say so much. The audience doesn't go by what you say. It's how you make them feel. You know who's getting all the parts in TV and stuff? All these alternative comics like Janine Garofalo and, you know, all the people who bomb in a straight comedy club, the people doing setup punchline. So it's not the joke so much, but you got to really work on your personality, your humanity. That's what you're trying to, you know, your own brand of craziness. People want to tune in. And they don't have to have anything in common with you. Like, you know, Richard Pryor did that. He got to his truth. People identified with it because I identified with the truth. They didn't have to live in the ghetto. You know, a lot of suburban white people love Richard Pryor because they knew, hey, this crazy motherfucker is telling his truth, you know? So it's about telling your truth, expressing yourself, being you, getting your essence out there, because it's not the jokes. After the show, people come up to you, man, I like that joke that you did, and you didn't even do the joke, the other guy did. So they don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. You know, read, study, you know, talk to some people, work on, get deep, you know, get you know, that's what you want to bring up there, that's what you're selling up there is you, your ideas, your thoughts. The more you got to, the deeper your well, the more you have to draw from, right? I mean, you know, I love
That's
this.
for any artist.
That's for any artist, and just love itself. You know, I love this saying that one can only love as deep as they are. You know, can a shallow person love deeply? I don't know. You know, I don't think so. You can only give what you have, right? You can't give what you don't have. So if you have no depth, no ideas, no thoughts, no character, you can't give that to anybody across the footlights, right?
Right.
You know, so, you know, work on yourself, get good with yourself, you know? So that's it. Not the jokes. It's not the jokes. It's you. You know, smiling is a big thing. Looking like you're having fun is a big thing.
Having fun.
Having fun. It's so corny, but I always say, you know, fun is the first word in funny. So, you know, you got to have, because people came there to have fun, you know. But you got to express your truth. That's first and foremost, because sometimes your truth might not be fun. You would just be a crazy motherfucker like Sam Kinison. But people enjoy that. Look at that dude go off, man. That's fucking entertaining. That is entertaining, you know. But if that's true, don't fake it, you know. But if that's your, you know, a lot of people, their whole comedy thing is angst. Well, go with it, you know. Be an anxious motherfucker, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But go all the way with who you, if that's you, do you. You know, that ain't gonna work for me because I ain't anxious.
Who were the comedians at the store that really impacted you?
The people that I watched, you know, and I watched every night because I was living with my mother and her husband at the time in a very small place, so I had to get out every night. So I'd go to the comedy store every single night just to get out of the house. And you have to watch it all. I learned more from the people who are making mistakes, who are bombing, than I did from guys who were killing. I learned what not to do, like, hey, that don't work. You know, they don't get mad at the crowd and say they suck. That don't work.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that seems to be the standard now with a lot of comics. It's like they come out, they don't have a set, they're not prepared, but they immediately go to attack the audience.
Because they're inexperienced and they've got nothing, and they get scared of it. It is going up there naked, you know. You don't have anything. Well, that's what happens. Fear comes in, and you're going to go into that attack mode.
My other favorite Jackson Perdue line is the acronym of fear.
Oh, fuck everything and run?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, again, there's only love and fear, right? So my thing now in development is I'm just trying to connect. I'm just trying to look people in the eye and really connect and not talk at them, you know, and not just throw the material out there. But again, you got to have good material, because sometimes the crowd ain't playing that, okay? And they just, and you got to have the jokes. You got to have the jokes, you know, because you could bring your own stream of consciousness alternative thing up there, and they ain't hearing it. They ain't from your world. But jokes are jokes. This is a setup. This is punchline, and people get the jokes. They might even not like you, but go, that guy was funny, but not my style. But hey, he was funny. he wasn't just up there blabbing about his, his bullshit, that ain't got nothing to do with me.
I've shared on these vlogs before of some of the stuff that you helped me with. And one of the greatest tools you gave me when I was doing stand-up was to turn down my laugh meter.
Yeah, and you have to do that. Like last night, I was telling you, I worked at the Laugh Factory at 1 a.m. There were like, I think there were 12 people there. And they had been there all night. I'm dead last. And that's what you got to do. With a small crowd, I always tell them, I don't know about penises, but I know with audiences, size does not matter. So you can get a full crowd who just flatlines on a Saturday night, and you could have, an intimate crowd of a dozen people who are really on board and get it. And that happened to me twice this week at the Laugh Factory. During the week, small crowds, and they were great. So yeah, you just got to go up there and, again, the fourth agreement: do your best.
Right, and turn down your laugh meter because.
Turn down your laugh meter. But if you just do your best and surrender everything else, then all the other mental chatter goes out your head. Oh, what it's going to be like this. That's asking yourself negative what-if questions in the future. This might happen. No, forget all that. Take that even out of the equation. Just show up and do your best. If you bomb, you did your best under the circumstance, right? So if you do your best, with everything in life, that's the only question you got to ask yourself.
And
did I do my best?
that is being of service.
Being of service, that's what I love. A quote from Snoop Dogg. He said, don't be nervous, be of service. I said, okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. Because it is a service. You are servicing, you are contributing to humanity by making people laugh. And I always say the beautiful thing about stand-up comedy is that it's such a sublime alchemy to take one's personal pain and transform that into public pleasure. I mean, there's nothing more sublime than that, right?
One of the things that I love about you, Jackson, is that you've been doing this such a long time, and I never hear you tire of it.
No, because I love it. I love it still, and it's part of my service. And again, I lead a surrendered life, so I don't trip. Like the people say, you've been a struggling comic. What struggling is mostly emotional, and I don't struggle.
Well, the thing is, you're successful. You have. Hear me out first. Hear me out. You have succeeded in that you get to do what you love every night. That's success.
No, that's success.
I mean, we can talk about material things, but
right.
You have been successful for 40 years.
Yeah.
You have done what you love. How many people out there never get to enjoy what they do? They hate it.
Right.
They're miserable. You go into the store, you order stuff, people are in there and they hate what they're doing. They're just getting a paycheck. When I see those people, I always say, I think you need something else. I think you need to find what you like because this is killing you.
Yeah. And most people are like that. Yeah, certainly.
So you have been successful. You have been able to take your skills and travel the world.
No, that's true. But, after you've been doing this a while, you always periodically have to redefine what success means to you. When you first get here, success means having your own show and being rich and famous. Then after a while, success just means working.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me get some work. My only showbiz aspiration now is just don't ever have to get a day job, Then I'm good. And I haven't had a day job in, 30-something years. So literally thousands of people who have come and gone and fallen to the wayside. And, here I still am.
Still standing.
Well, you know what my thing is? I identify with the last scene in the movie Papillon when he's escaping off the island and he's on that bunch of coconuts tied together in a bag and he says, "I'm still here, you bastards." And that's how I am. I'm still here, you bastards. They can't get me to quit because I will not quit. And I've always had that. Like when I first started out, and I used to go to the comedy store every night, right? So when Richard Pryor came in, it'd be packed. So the doorman who ran the place, they tell me, "Hey, you can't come in tonight. Pryor's here." I'm like, hey, fuck that. That's my man, right? So I'd sneak in. They would kick me out. I already snuck back in before they got in. And I remember them kicking me out for like the third time. Then I'm not going to tell you again. You got to get out of here. And I remember telling myself, you know what? If they want to get rid of me, they're going to have to put me in the trunk of the car, drive me across the state line, drop me off in the desert, and I'll be walking back. You know, they ain't getting rid of me. You know, and they got that message because the people who threw me out ended up being my helping, you know, with Mitzi and get me the job working there because I just was not taking no for an answer.
Wow.
That's all there was to it, you know. So
Speaking of Richard Pryor, this was a big aha moment and teachable moment for me, in that I remember sitting in the main room at the Comedy Store, and he was there for like a week or whatever. I remember just sitting there watching him. He was crafting some new bits, and he was dying on stage. And people were heckling him and giving him a hard time. And I remember turning around going, that's Richard Pryor. How could they do that? And then I sat there, I said, everybody bombs.
everybody bombs, and you're never immune to it at any time, no matter how famous you know, just some nights it just ain't gonna happen. But again, you just go back to, did I do my best? And then you're okay. So, you know, again, that fourth agreement has helped me out so much. Yeah, Pryor, when, you know, it was so sad to see him because, you know, I remember what, you know, the later days when he was sick, he would go on, they'd introduce him, he'd get a standing ovation, he'd go on, bomb his ass off for 20 minutes or whatever, silence, and then get a standing ovation coming off. But I was okay with that because at that time he was sick, and he was coming in for the applause and the love, and he had earned that. Mm-hmm. You know, that was his, like, going to the fucking clinic, getting some love that he had put in. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I had no bad feelings about, go get the love, Richard.
Carry him on
and that was really healing. Who else can go to a place and just start getting a lot of this? Hey, you're a wonderful guy, you know, everybody needs that, right? Sure. And everybody needs that, like you're saying, these people hate their jobs because they don't get any of this, man. Hey, good bags, you put that stuff in the bag, really great, you know, great memo, you know. People don't get that. Yes. And, you know, we get that every day, you know. Like when I work in Vegas, I have this friend of mine, and she likes to gamble and do all the party and stuff. When I work in Vegas, I'm like Howard Hughes. I just stay holed up in my room. I only leave my room to eat and do the show. I don't gamble. I don't really drink, whatever. But she likes to go out and do all that stuff. And I told her, look, man, I already did the most exciting thing you could do. All right, I already got up in a room full of people, was the most special guy in the room, and I got that good feeling. And if that was a ride here in Vegas, do you know how long that line would be to get on that ride to do what I just did? Okay, I just did that thing, so everything else is going to be anticlimactic for me, you know. Mm-hmm. If you're good at something, you just keep doing it because you're good at it, and it feels good to do that.
Good. For young comedians or people who want to get into comedy, what are some tips that you would give them?
Study comedy. Anybody that wants to get into comedy should study it first.
How would they do that? How?
Go to comedy clubs. You're lucky. When I first got into it, we didn't have as much YouTube, so we didn't have any YouTube stuff, actually. So we had to go to comedy clubs. So you can study YouTube, physically go to comedy clubs, and talk to comedians, not young comics like yourself. Try to talk to older comics and let them know, I'm trying to get into comedy. Any advice you can give me? Some will. I'll give advice to any young comic that comes up. Some will not. They'll tell you, don't get in the business. We got enough comics. We don't need you. There's like a tester. When you're a young comic, how much abuse you can take from older comics. And if you can take a lot of abuse from older comics, you can be a comic. Because there's no amount of abuse you're going to get from an older comic that an audience is not going to give you. So you have to make sure that your skin is thick. Record all your shows as a young comic or somebody just starting in comedy. Record it all and be very honest with yourself. When you hear a laugh, that is a good joke. You got to laugh. You didn't hear a laugh, well, try that same joke 2 more audiences, because maybe they didn't get it, maybe the timing was wrong, maybe that joke belongs somewhere else in your set. I've had jokes that I thought were opening line jokes and nothing. I try them later on, 3/4 in, they're killers, because the audience is now, they've had a chance to know who you are and what they can accept from you and what they're comfortable with. Sometimes you kind of introduce yourself too early to them, or you expose your warts too early, and I don't even know you yet. You know, once they've got to know you, you can pretty much say anything you want. Be very judgmental, be very critical of yourself as a young comic. Write down your goals in comedy, and I wish somebody had told us to do this? Because going into comedy right now, you probably have a goal, an overall goal. You have a general goal. Do you want to be a cruise ship comic? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be on television? Do you want to do movies? Do you want to be a comedy actor or actress? An actress is garbage because all actresses are actors.
And you should also have goals for each set.
Yes, you have to have short-term goals, which are the immediate set that night. Have a goal for that week. How many shows do you want to do that week? How many new jokes do you want to write for that week? How many new jokes do you want to perfect? How many jokes that you've been working on do you finally want to put closure to? What do you want to do this month? How many shows do you want to do this year? How many paid shows? Because there's a difference. You have to go to the gym. You have to work out. Some people call it open mics. I call it where you can drop in somewhere and do some time and work out a new joke. But then when you're getting paid to do stand-up, don't do new jokes unless you're 100% confident in that joke. But you're getting paid to be at the performance level of whoever is hired you. Be at that level that they hired you for. Don't go up there experimenting and horsing around. Because not only is that their money, which they'll make more, it's your reputation, which you can't make another. Once your reputation is shot that I hired this guy and he came up, he had a pad, he's doing new jokes. I'll never hire a guy. What unprofessional? Once they use the word unprofessional, then your goose is pretty much cooked.
So let's talk about the pad. You see it more and more, and I think it's like horrible.
I think it's garbage.
I mean, I think you're getting paid, even if it's $2, you're getting paid. You should know the material. You should not bring a pad. And if you're trying new jokes, just memorize it and bring it to the room.
There's no reason to have a pad. Chris Rock does it, and he's the first one I saw do it. And I would accept it for someone like Chris Rock because when Chris Rock does it, he's working out for his next album. So he will have a pad of new jokes, and he will grade those jokes right there in front of the audience. He lets the audience know, basically, you're my guinea pig. But I'm working on an album or a special that you will see.
But he's also doing it where he's not getting paid. It is a drop-in.
It is a drop-in.
So it's very specific.
Right. You're not going to see him in a concert.
Right. He's not doing a concert and saying, well, what do I want to talk about?
No.
This sounds good.
He's specifically letting you know, I just dropped in for a few minutes. I'm trying out some new jokes for the special I'm going to be recording in X number of months. I will accept it when a comic of notoriety does that.
Right. And usually they do it during the week when it's not a packed house, when the house is light to medium. But they never do it on the weekend shows.
No, they will not disturb. I was performing, and this was ages ago, I was performing in Atlanta, and it was during the week. Promoter came and said, Chris Rock is here, he wants to know, can he get some time? It's like, hell yeah, it's Chris Rock, of course. And he went up with his pad, he did like 10 minutes of material, and he said thanks. And went on about his business. He wasn't abusive on it. Andrew Dice Clay is abusive about that kind of stuff. I'll drop that out there, Andrew, because you are. If you have comics on the show, and this is what I appreciate about Chris, and this is why I'm outing Andrew Dice Clay and those of this mentality. If there's a show of young comics who were where you were before you blew up, you do like Chris Rock. You go in, hey, can I get a couple of minutes? I don't want to screw up your show. I just want to try out some jokes. You do it, and you get on. That's professional. Andrew Dice Clay saying, hey, I just want to go up and tell a couple of jokes, and then you do 40 minutes. It's not professional. Because now I have to cancel my show with the comics that I had booked who need to try, who are trying to get where you are. And you're vainglorious and needy, and you just must control an audience. But another thing about young comics that I would advise is...
Well, let me just say one thing. And Dice Clay is not the only one.
No, he's not.
There's a long list of
abusers,
of seasoned comics who go in during the week and will hog up the whole time. And these young comics who have been working so hard to get that one spot that they couldn't get for 3 months, now it's gone, and they're not being asked to come back the next day.
No, because you had your shot. It doesn't matter if Dice Clay or whoever hogged your shot. That was your shot. Another thing, I do mention this in the webinar, and I'll go ahead and tell you this now, young comedians, period. Nobody knows your act. Like when you screw up in your act, or you're off track, or you don't really know where you want to go next. Nobody knows that except you. So if you tip them off, then your entire set can be destroyed. But if you learn certain techniques, excuse me, if you learn that was a technique. That wasn't a real cough. That was a BS cough. That was a cough to stall. And you can do that on stage anytime you want to. You can go ahead and grab the microphone stand and put the mic in it while you're stalling and act like you're getting ready to do a bit, but you were stalling. Learn stall techniques on stage, because our main thing is we have to remain entertaining. You can drop the microphone if you want. Anything so you mentally can get back on track, but you're not standing there looking at the audience like, I'm lost. Never let them see you sweat.
What should they do about confidence? You know, because a lot of times you have young stand-ups who are coming up. They come in the room. They don't know how to use the mic. They don't look at the audience. They're looking down. They're talking to the mic like this. And some of them are really funny, but you don't get it because they're so afraid.
The only thing that can build confidence, honestly, is success. If you have a successful set, keep that set, play that set on the way in to build your confidence to know, I am this good. I don't care if you're in a slump and your last 3 or 4 shows have been garbage. Play that set for yourself to remember how good you really are. And the rest of those are the anomalies. Those are the novelty sets. This is the real you. Give yourself that. Now, if you have never had a successful set, what you do to build your confidence, this is what I do, and I do this regularly. I'll watch somebody who's excellent. And it doesn't have to be, I might watch a Bruce Lee movie because that is a form of excellence. I might watch a Muhammad Ali boxing match because that's a form of excellence. I might watch a really good movie that I thought was a really excellent, and the craftsmanship was there, and that will push me to want to rise to a certain level. Because if you are living in your head as a young comic, you're not that good. You're a young comic. Watch Richard Pryor, watch Robin Williams, watch whoever you think is really great, and don't be intimidated by that. Say to yourself, if you have the confidence in yourself to even be a comedian, then you have the confidence to be a successful one. Who wants to be a failure? So look at somebody who's really good. And remember this, as a comedian, it is joke to joke to joke, moment to moment to moment. Don't worry if somebody says, hey, I need you to do 10 minutes. It's minute to minute to minute. Think about it like sports, for those of you who play football out there. It's not a game of 100 yards. It's a game of yard to yard, sometimes inches. Write new jokes. Try to write a joke a day, and this is what I advise too. Only write what you know, and then what you know, expand upon that by reading something new every day. It could just be one article that you just pull up on your phone. It could be something you want to know about, or something that's just right there in the news. Pull up something that's a new fact every single day and try to write a joke behind it. Because at the end of the year, you got 365 new jokes or attempts, and if only half of them were any good, you got 100, and you're the mathematician here, you got 180 some odd jokes that should be semi-valid, and in a year's worth of work, that ain't bad.
There are some great podcasts of comics talking about how they write their jokes, how they break it down, what they do, what they learned, and that's something that anybody can listen to or watch. Or
not to overly push the webinar, but not to under push it either. I do tell you how to write solid jokes in it, where you don't have the fat, where you get to the point, because a lot of comics
over talk. So you do give them craft.
Yes.
You do break down craft of a joke.
It is just not about making money, which is the end result of what every performer wants, but you have to have that craftsmanship and that foundation. And so within the time frame,
the punchline. You gotta have the setup and the punchline. Right. You can't get up there and just say riffing. Some profanity, that MF, blah, 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 and that's not the funny. And I think that sometimes they watch really great comics who craft stuff, and because they say a curse word, that's what they zoom in on.
Paul Mooney said if your joke, and he would know if your joke has to end in a curse word, you don't have a joke. Curse words are supposed to be the spice. They're not supposed to be the meal. They're the icing. They're not the cake. So if I'm in a place where people are drinking liquor, I probably will curse. If I'm in a place where they're drinking smoothies, I probably won't, because it's the mindset of the audience. That's like playing for old people versus younger people. I can do a Cardi B joke all day long in front of young people. Old people, they don't get it. I did it. I was in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I told a Cardi B joke, and they all stared at me, and I said, well, my daughter wrote that joke for me, and I don't get it myself. And then they laughed. And that's another thing as a young comic, do not be afraid to ad-lib. Now, this is a rule of thumb, and I hope you follow this. Get a solid 5 or 10 minute act that you can take anywhere. Solid. And from that, build another 5, build another 5, build another 5. Before you know it, you got 30 or 45 minutes. But once you get that solid act, be able and don't be afraid to jump off track and say something else that has nothing to do with that. Like if somebody comes in the back of the room and they're wearing a funny suit, don't be afraid to say it. Don't be afraid to live in the moment.
To call the elephant out in the room.
Right, because other people are tripping it if the sound goes off in the microphone. Don't be afraid to put the microphone down and say something like, "Where'd you get this Radio Shack, crap," or whatever you want to say. Don't be afraid to do it, because you're exercising that ad-lib thing, and it goes back to what I said earlier. Nobody knows your act. They don't know if that was part of your act or not. Yeah.
If you didn't get to say what you wanted to say in that moment, but you came up with something funny after, write it down, because there will be a next time.
There was always
for
going to be
you
a next
to
time.
use.
It always
for you
repeats.
to use that opportunity.
Keep a piece of paper and a pen, or at very least your cell phone to record. And the reason I say paper and pen is because cell phone can run out of the battery, you can be out of the signal area, any weird thing can happen with electronics or technology. You got a pencil or a pen and a piece of paper, you'll be able to write down whatever you want to,
Yeah.
and it's there.
And I'm a believer to do index cards.
Okay.
Put your jokes on index cards.
That's a good policy.
Because then you can shift around if you're,
Build your set like
yes,
that.
Yes,
That's a
because
good
then if you go in the smoothie room and then your next set is in the bar,
Right.
and you need you can't do the same jokes, you
Those
can
cards.
swap them out. And I learned that from opening for Patrice Rushen.
Nice. Okay.
Because during the week, the audience stayed for both shows. And I only had one set.
Okay.
And then I had to do the set again for the same
audience.
people.
Yeah.
And so I started learning, wait a minute. And so during the week, when it was the same audience and they were not leaving, like the weekend audience, I started learning, wait a minute, okay, what material do I want to do? How can I switch it up? They already heard this, but if I do it in a different way, it's going to fool them a little bit.
No,
I mean,
it's
the same.
It can't be by rote. It can't be like a robot.
Right.
Yeah.
And that really does help. And there's something about the cards. What I love is Joan Rivers used to catalog her jokes in cards. I didn't know that either until later. I saw her documentary, and she had like wall-to-wall card files. And she would pull it, and this was this joke, and this what. I was like, I am so impressed.
Yeah, Carlin does that too. Seinfeld does that. There are comics who write down everything. They can tell you the set they did in 1999, March 12th, and all of that. And they are shocked by comics who do not obsessively write like that. I'm kind of in the middle. I write down a whole lot of jokes, and I've got bags and boxes of jokes that I haven't got to. And I've been trying to get to them and all that, but then you get so consumed with the set that you're doing. And that's another thing as a young comic. If you can do this, you will amaze me as much as Don D.C. Curry. I asked Don D.C. Curry, because I was telling him, well, man, I've done about 6,000 shows. And he said, I've done 8,922 shows. He knew the exact number. And I said, how do you know that? He said, well, I started keeping track when I first started, but part of that 2,952 are shows that I did as podcasts, but I did monologues on each one, and the other 6,950. So he knew the breakdown. And he said, after tonight, it will be, because we were at one of his podcasts, and he said, after tonight, it'll be blah, 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 blah. As a young comic, this is your sport. If you can keep stats of basketball players, and you know how fast a track person can run and all that, keep your own stats.
Yes.
I've had comics that have said to me, it's like, well, man, I like comedy, man, but I don't like the game. I said, but you're a sports fanatic. How can you not like your own game?
But Drew gave me a lot of stand-up advice, too, because a lot of the writers were stand-ups as well. But I remember he told me to write 10 jokes a day. And when I do open mics, to start with the jokes that word, put the new ones in the middle, and then end with the joke that that
Kills.
works.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was great with like telling me that. I did like I wrote 5 jokes. I didn't write 10.
But for any comic who is listening, that is the standard. You open with something that you have hot from your arsenal. You close with something you have hot from your arsenal, and then you put the new stuff in the middle. That way, the audience forgives you
Right.
for making them stop laughing for a period of time. They give you, they extend that grace to you. But if you open and you're not funny, and you close and you're not funny, they will hate you. If you're trying to break into the business, or you are starting fresh, let people want to know about you. Don't be so quick to say, well, I do this and I do that, because then people don't want to deal with you. And I say that as having experienced it myself when I was starting, as well as today. I get that, well, I'm a stand-up and I do this. Yes, but you got paid to do PA work. So
Right.
do the PA work. Let people see that you have class, that you have character, and that you do the job. And then they will want to know you. I just wanted to throw that in
That's
there, because
real
sometimes
talk.
you get people come in, they come in as a gopher or a PA or an intern, and right away they want to be the star.
Yeah.
And it crushes them. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to start doing stand-up?
Stay in school. No. If you're funny and you think you can do it, try it. It's a lot of fun. Look, it's a good gig. The business is a little tricky, because at the end of the thing, you don't get a gold watch. You don't get a pension. Do this. Be passionate about it. Save your money. Work as much as you can. Get up as much as you can. The more you get up, the better you become. If you do it like once a month and go, well, I think
It's
I'll
not
do
gonna
it.
work.
I think I'll do it in July again. Then
Yeah.
going, how come they're not laughing? Well,
Yeah, because it's a muscle.
Absolutely.
You gotta work that muscle every day.
yeah. If you have a chance and opportunity to get up, go ahead and do it.
What are some good things that you've learned from doing stand-up all these years, business-wise?
Right.
And then some bad things you've learned business-wise?
As far as comics are concerned, you have to create your own work. Sometimes you got to go on the road for a long time. Not necessarily months, but sometimes you got to follow the work, and you can't be out of town sometimes, and maybe it's not always at home. You can produce your own shows to make your own money if you want, depending on how hard you want to work. The bad thing about comedy is there's people out there that will take advantage of you. There's promoters and club owners and people that, if you're green and they know you're green, you go out there.
So let's talk about how you get your money after you...
Well, I got a stick. I carry a dog with me. Then some of your own street knowledge comes in.
Oh, yes.
And you got to talk to somebody.
Oh, yes.
Because you go somewhere and they'll go, well, it's raining, nobody came here, and so we didn't make any money, so you're not getting yours. Well, no, I'm getting mine, because otherwise I'm burning up something. But no, never violent.
I would offer to go to the ATM with them. I'll go with you to the ATM.
Right.
I have no problem.
Right. Exactly.
I'm getting my money before I get back on that plane.
Yeah. Or you get your money up front.
Yes.
And you get there. So when I show up, you give me my money. Well, how do I know? Well, I'm already here, man. I just traveled 1,000 miles. What am I going to do? Take your money and run?
Or get half up front
Yeah.
and half when you get there.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Always.
Yes.
So that you don't come home with nothing in your pocket. Especially if that's your living. That's how you provide for your family. You can't come back and go, well,
My favorite used to be when I'd ask people, what's your budget? Oh, we've got a big budget.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well,
Yeah.
this is what, we get paid. Oh, yeah. And then you get there and they say, well, I thought that was for everybody.
Yeah.
Some guy had asked me if I could suggest another comic, and I offered Gilbert, and I said, this is what we get paid.
Right.
We get there. And the guy, after the thing, I said, we're ready for the money.
Right.
Because I have no shame about asking for my money. And so he pulls out $500. And I said, okay, where's the other $500?
Right.
And he was like, oh, no, that's it. I said, oh, no, that's not it. No, that is not it. And poor Gilbert,
Yeah.
his whole face, like the blood drained. He
Right.
said, no, it's okay. I said, no, it's not okay.
Right.
I said, you take this, I'll come to your office tomorrow and get mine.
Exactly.
And I
Gilbert
did.
must have learned from that, because
I did.
Gilbert does that now. There'll be guys that don't get paid, and Gilbert's the first one to jump up from, no, man. You know, everybody here is going to get paid.
Oh, yeah. And I learned from that one because he said it to me and I wrote it all down. So I had it in a notebook. But what I realized was, no, that's not good enough. When they tell you what it is, you type it up, you send it to them as an invoice or a little deal memo so that there's an understanding that when I come in there, this is what I am getting.
So there's no confusion.
Because we're not taught that as comics, you know, and I remember it took me 3 years to get paid as a comic. I was just so happy to be on stage. You're going to give me stage time? And I have to buy 2 drinks? I have to buy 2 drinks?
Give you money.
Okay.
Yeah, right?
I buy 2 drinks.
I'll give you money and I'll go up there and work. That is the absolute truth because it is a business. And sometimes comics fail to realize that.
Yes.
And then you go in and say, no, I'll do it. I just want to go up there and be funny and get drunk with power because you got some laughs and then you walk out and then you got nothing to eat or drink or bus fare or whatever. If you're going to do it as a business.
That's right.
If you're going to do it for fun, well, that's another story.
Right. And you need to go do it somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
But go somewhere else because you're messing it up for us.
There's a bus depot over
That's
there.
right. That's right.
So,
At what point did you start saying, I should have my name on the marquee or I should, because it's not just money, but it's also credibility.
right. Again, you have to do your own work. And now with social media, comics have it that much easier because they can just spread their brand and be recognized, to where back in the day we would have to take, pictures and articles and, I remember I sent it to the Ice House one time. I faxed the guy my picture and an article that I had in the paper, some local paper. I go, did you get my stuff? He goes, yeah, I got your stuff. I goes, you got to send me all that. Just come by, man. When a club had me as a headliner, I didn't know I was a headliner. I was just working, and I was adding stuff to my set. So when I got to 45 to an hour, and they said you can headline, I thought, okay, well now I start making some money, because when you're the opener or the feature, you don't get paid that much.
Right.
So then you go to places like Vegas, and Vegas will put your name up there. They won't pay you that much, but you get the
Accolades.
yeah. You get that.
You get to take a picture and say,
Right.
my name is on the marquee
Up in lights.
Vegas.
How much did you make? I made $6. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's stand-up. So now you teach stand-up.
Right. Poor people.
What is one of the misconceptions you see when people sign up to take your classes?
A lot of times what I'll see is somebody who's funny in the street, which is a good thing because some guys are naturally funny. You want to be naturally funny to be a comedian. But they want to bring that to the stage. And it's a different animal when you get on the stage because you're not talking to your boys on the corner. You're talking to an audience. It might be a diverse audience. It might be, whatever. But these people came to get entertained. It's not like when you're in the street, you go, hey, your mama this, and and you're a little offensive and stuff. So I tell them, there's a technique. This is how you do a joke. There's a formula. There's a premise to set up the punchline. Not everything is a cuss word. Because when you do it in the streets, you can be funny just cussing away. And now you gotta develop a set, and then you gotta have stage mechanics. You have to have a personality. You have to be likable. You have to have your own voice. So they're like, really, I got to do all that. And that's part of it, man. There's guys that go up there and try to do what they do in the street or at home, and it doesn't translate on stage.
Or by the water cooler.
Yeah, by the water cooler, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't translate on stage. So.
If they want to take class with you, how
rob
would they?
my house. No, I'm online.
Okay.
RudyMoreno.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all that stuff. I'm on posters in the post office. You'll find
So
me,
am
man.
I.
Yeah.
I'm on the post office posters.
I'm right next to you. So, yeah.
What would you like your legacy to be as a comic?
That I helped a lot of people in their careers, and I've also used comedy to help others. That's pretty much it. If you can do that, you can use it as a vehicle to help other people. Why not?
If you're contemplating a career in stand-up comedy or comedy writing, I've got some great books for you. Stay tuned. When I started doing stand-up, there were 2 books that were my go-to books. The first one was Comedy Writing Secrets by Melvin Helitzer. It is a book that I've been using since I started doing stand-up over 25 years ago, and I still use today. He just breaks down different types of jokes, how to get to the punchline. He gives you exercises. I love this book, and I recommend it to everybody I know who is dabbling in stand-up comedy or wants to be a comedy writer. this is a must-have book in your library. The next book that is on my must list is the stand-up comedy book by Judy Carter. That book helps you not just with your comedy writing, but your actual comedy persona and performance. She takes you through all the steps you need in order to start your career in stand-up. How to get on stage, how to hold the mic. I love this book because it gives you stand-up comedy from a comedian's point of view. It's a must-have in your library if you're going to do stand-up comedy. The other book that I suggest is Comic Insight, The Art of Stand-Up Comedy. And it's written by one of my favorite people, Franklin Ajayi, who's hysterical. We love him. I've worked with him a lot. He's the best. And he does some great interviews with some of the best stand-up comics today. So I recommend you read it so that you can get some insight on what stand-up comics go through. Other books that I recommend are How to Write Funny by Scott Dikkers, Step by Step to Stand-Up Comedy by Greg Dean, who is a wonderful comic and also a wonderful comedy teacher. The Comedy Bible by Judy Carter, The Comic Toolbox by John Vorhaus, The Hidden Tools of Comedy by Stephen Kaplan, How to Do Stand-Up Comedy by Darryl Littleton, How to Be Funny by Darryl Littleton. I'm not getting paid for this. It is not an advertisement. It is from the heart. I really love these books. So somebody who's out there listening right now and they're starting their career, what are some pointers that you could give them?
It doesn't matter how many comedy gigs you've done. It matters how many clicks you get, how many likes you get, and how many followers you have. And now there's all these internet sensations that have never earned their chops on the road as real comics, and yet they're selling out. There's this kid, Frankie Quinones, who I've met him, and he's a really cool dude. He did the Lean Back Cholo video. He's selling out the Will Turn, and he never really earned his chops as a comic, but now he is a legit comic. And so my advice to young people is to, and I've been saying this for many, many years, you got to believe in yourself and you got to put yourself out there in whatever genre feels organic to you. And for this guy, Frankie Quinones, making these videos turned him into a star. Joey Diaz, good old Joey Diaz, told me this one time. He goes, "You can't mess with the laws of physics, Ernie G. The cream always rises to the top. You can't mess with the laws of physics." And that stuck with me because regardless of the hype, regardless of how much you market yourself, you still got to be able to deliver. If people pay money to come see you and you're not as funny as you look online, that's a big problem. The reason I became a comedian is when Def Comedy Jam came out, in 19 tatara, whatever it was, I would bolt home to watch it at Friday night at midnight. Russell Simmons, Def Comedy Jam. That's when I learned about Bernie Mac, Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, all these stars. And Bernie Mac would always talk about, like, he could never get his own sitcom. He could never get his own TV show. And when he did the Kings of Comedy, he said that, "Come on, please, I'll do History Channel. I'll do the Animal Planet. Give me a show." And then I saw an interview with him, and he said he wasn't waiting for Hollywood to give him the green light. He was already a beast in the Chitlin Circle and all the black comedy clubs. And then when he finally made it, he always said, "Hollywood didn't make Bernie Mac. The people made Bernie Mac." And I just remember Mercedes would always tell me, when you perform, hang out after the show and get people's information. And I had a list, their address, their phone numbers, and all of a sudden I had like 1,000 Ernie G fans on my mailing list, and I would send out this mailing list and people would come to my shows. It got to the point that Univision wanted to buy my mailing list from me.
Wow.
Because they wanted to get people to come to their shows. And I actually got booked as the audience warm-up on 2 TV shows on Univision. One was called Los Recién Casados, the Newlyweds, and Buscando Pareja, the dating game.
I did that show.
Oh, really?
Buscando Pareja.
So the point is that I had a following of people before I was famous,
Right.
because I would hang out with people, I would talk to them, I would listen to them. And years later, people come up to me and they go, "Ernie, I know you don't remember this, bro, but you performed at the Laugh Factory on a Monday night, and you took time to hang out with me and my wife, and we took a picture of you, and that picture's been hanging on our wall for 12 years, bro, and we'll never forget that." And I've heard those stories all over the country. That's why students 10, 12, 15 years ago, they're now professionals, and now they're bringing their friends and family to my shows. I have like years and years of fans because I take the time to spend time with people, listen to them, hang out with them, take a picture, and that's how I've manifested my following.
There's a couple reasons why I do festivals.
one, it's like a good way to like see how your stuff plays in a different market. Because like a lot of times, like sometimes people will also, like I see this in LA and I also see this with other people in other places, but it's kind of like if sometimes people tend to do local comedy. I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard someone say one time that an inside joke is like the funniest joke because it's like the thing that we all can like relate on, right? Like it's the thing that like it feels like so like, oh, it's a secret to us. So, but what happens sometimes is sometimes people will do so many inside jokes for the region that they're in.
Or the room.
Or
Sometimes
the room
it's not
they're
even
in.
the region,
Exactly.
it's just
The room. And then when they go to other markets, they realize...
Or other rooms.
Or other rooms, they real exactly, because you can also experience different rooms in here. Like, yeah, you can go do a young show and then do a show that has older people and still have two different, like, they'll not know what you're talking about if you're like, oh, TikTok. Like, you get what I'm saying? So...
What's talking and ticking? What?
Yeah, so, like, that's one of the reasons why comedy festivals are so great is because you get to, like, try all these different markets. It's also, like, you get to
test your material.
You get to test your material.
They stand up.
And see how it works. And, like, you see, like, oh, okay, this joke actually needs some work. Like, it doesn't... There's something about this that's... Even if it's not, like, a reference, there's something about this joke that, like, other markets aren't getting. And you're like, okay, it might just be a certain attitude that people, like, can kind of... I don't know. It's like you start figuring out that. And then it's also cool because, like, you get to see, like, try in front of, like... tends to be festivals, too, are a great place to network. Like, as far as networking with other comics and also professional people. Also, another reason why I love festivals is because, one, you also get to travel, which is dope. And then I love festivals, too, because you get to practice in front of larger crowds. Because, like, it depends on, like, where you're starting from. Like, in smaller places, you kind of can practice in front of more people. Like, there's more opportunities to perform in front of... Like, not more opportunities, but I'd say there's more opportunities to perform in large crowds. Like, it's like if you start in LA or New York, you have chances to perform.
You don't have a lot of competition, so
in smaller markets.
It's a smaller group of comics.
Yeah, in like Texas or...
Whereas if you're in LA...
There's a lot of comics.
Or in New York.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you get up that night.
Yeah.
Your work ethic is incredible. When you started doing stand-up, because I told you, and not helping you. No, I'm just kidding. But when you started doing stand-up, you really honed in on it, and there have been weeks when you have done 25, 27 rooms a week.
Yeah.
Just going and hitting
doing
those
open
mics.
mics, yeah.
And so, because of that process, anywhere from, let's say, on a slow week, 12 rooms.
Yeah.
Like you've not, when I started doing stand-up, if I got to do 2 rooms in a night, that was huge. But your minimum is like 4 to 5. That's a minimum.
Yeah.
That's not, it's like...
On a good night, we can get like 6, 7, yeah. No, it is true. I've like grown very fast, and to like only be like 2 years into comedy, like some of the dope opportunities I've been blessed with, like it's really cool, and it is a lot of work. It's like a lot of work. It's like it's like late nights, like after coming back from sets, watching other stand-up, seeing like what are people doing. I think I've done very well because I've gotten my butt kicked so hard. I've gone from very big bombs, and like the next night being like, okay, let's hit some more mics. Even though I'd be like very scared and very like very saddened, or like going through periods of like weeks where it's like this one bit is just not working and people are looking at you like you're a crazy person, and you're like, I think I used to be funny. Like you're kind of like and you just have to trust, like almost like when people were on like a boat, like you gotta just trust that like land is coming soon. And like land does come soon, but sometimes it's like it's like, you know, I love my friends who bear with me and like see me when I'm working on something new and it's not quite anything, and people are like, I thought Lexie was funny. And then when it's always
that's
nice,
the process.
but it is the process, and it's always nice when you make it, you know, you make it to see, like David Arnold, he introduced this movie to me called Comedian, which is Jerry Seinfeld reworking his 1 hour, like, documentary, and you see him like making an hour from like scratch, and you see him bombing, and you see him being like, oh, am I funny? And I was like, we all, like, it was really, so anytime I'm having like a rough peak, I like watch that and I go like, okay, I'm not alone, like we all go through this, because it's like so vivid to watch. It's cool. How I was able to find my comedy voice was just by doing a lot of different stories and kind of realizing like, oh, this is like me, this is like my personality, this is what I'm drawn to, this is what I like. And I remember, you know, Beth was like a big component about like, what are you selling? Who are you? And like, I remember it kind of like, I feel like sometimes it takes someone else pointing out like, oh, this is what you do naturally, because like you don't even think about it. Like I do a lot of, like Beth was describing me and she said, it's almost like you're like a modern day kind of Lucy, like you get into these weird kind of things and we don't think it's gonna work out for you, but it does. And then it's like, okay, like that's my persona. And I also think coming from a writer, it's like I think as stand-up, it's like, yes, I am myself, but it's also like a heightened version of myself. Mm-hmm. And it's like looking at that character and going like, okay, so like how can we push it? Like how can I describe real events and do it under the guise of like my own voice? And like, this is like me. Like I'm a very optimistic person. And so of course like that is going to boil over into the stand-up.